Hello, this is Wes Weber, and this is my project on the pre-modern history of Venice, Italy. First off, I'd just like to start off with some maps to go over where the city is located and other things. First off, the city is located in the northern Veneto region of Italy. It is located in the Gulf of Venice, which is named after the city, and the Adriatic Sea. This is a map of the different neighborhoods throughout Venice. There's actually only six, but it shows seven. Giudecca and Dorsoduro are combined together. This map I found was very cool because it shows, which I'll dive into later, that the city does not actually have any roads really. It is it has a system of canals throughout that the citizens use with boats and gondolas to get to one place to another. And finally, just an overhead view of the city that I found really cool. And then finally, I was able to luckily visit the city back in freshman year of high school, and so I found it very cool to be able to learn more of its history and to relive it a little bit. So going into important buildings and structures, this is the Doge's Palace, which is of Gothic architecture. It's basically where the higher up of the or the ruler of the city of Venice stayed. Um, and it's now a museum that has a bunch of art located in it, which you can see in the top right. And it's just a very cool building overall, with the courtyard in the middle of it on the bottom right. And then there is the Basilica de San Marco, which is located in the Piazza de San Marco, which is basically like the forum of the city of Venice. Um, this is one of the most known churches from the city. The origin and history of Venice. Venice was founded in the 5th century AD and is spread throughout 118 small islands. Um, Venice became a city basically because of um, Italians were trying to escape a barbarian raids, um, and the city was actually not supposed to be a permanent place, but it turned out to be. And then eventually the city was built up and became a maritime power in the 10th century, with one of its biggest successes coming in 1204 when they helped the Crusaders capture Constantinople. Venice is the main island. Um, it's it stands the largest and is one of the greatest capitals in the medieval world. And the city is actually not, it was built on a lagoon, but the buildings itself are not built on the actual islands. It's basically a system and series of wooden platforms and silts. This was to allow the buildings to be built on a solid foundation and not the sandy marshlands that the islands are. And then I'll go into the analysis of key structures of Venice. First off, there's trade. After overtaking Constantinople, many treasures such as bronze horses that were from St. Mark's Cathedral came into the city. This cemented that Venice was a true trading power in the West. Um, this eventually led to basically all the goods that were coming to Europe to have to pass through the city. And trade was such a big thing in Venice because of all the merchants had connections to traders on in the Mongolian Empire and all throughout the Silk Road. Um, this led to a trade treaty being made between the two trading powers in 1221. Many items that were traded between Venice and their counterparts included gems, minerals, spices, different textiles such as silk and cotton. Marco Polo's expedition that took place between 1271 and 1295 allowed the city's trade to expand even more into the west. The Doge of Venice then held a ceremony called the Marriage to the Sea. It was just a funny little tidbit I found where they went into the Adriatic Sea, him and a bunch of government officials and higher ups to basically preach that the city's trade will prosper, which it actually did for a while until the Ottomans came in the 17th century and really challenged the trade powers for Venice. But this wasn't the city's only battle for trade supremacy. They also were battling Genoa, among other countries, for control of trade. Then there are the road and streets. Like I said earlier, Venice does not actually really have any roads and or streets. It's a system of waterways and canals. The citizens can either get by place to place by either walking, if they have bridges over the canals that they're going over, or by the most popular means of transportation, boat or gondola. The gondola, as you can see in the bottom right picture, there's a bunch of them. It's basically just a long wooden boat that can fit many people and is controlled by paddles or oars. The gondolas that were used in the 15th and 16th century are still the same type of gondola that is used today. It just shows that they're very sturdy, very reliable mode of transportation. And then finally, there are the religion and religious structures of Venice. Venice liked to stay independent from the rest of Rome when it came to religious matters. They kept most of the bishops that were appointed to Venice were actually native to Venice. They did not like foreigners. They liked to keep it local. Um, the state of Venice overlooked the monasteries and taxed the clergy, unlike the rest of Rome. And finally, the main church of Venice that it was used and still is used as a focal point for rituals and religious ceremonies is the Basilica of San Marco, which I went over a little bit earlier, but just a little bit more information about it. Um, it is located in the center of the city, close to the Doge's Palace, which is located in the Piazza San Marco, which, like I said earlier, is like their forum. Basically, it's a wide open area. Um, little or not little known fact, but the basilica is known to house the bones of Saint Mark the Evangelist, which were actually stolen from Alexandria in 828 and taken to Venice. And the church is made up of a mix of Italo-Byzantine and Gothic architecture, which makes sense since the Doge's Palace, who basically oversaw the making of the basilica, was made using Gothic architecture. And just as a little conclusion, as a little wrap up, Venice is very different from most of the pre-modern cities that we've learned about during this class. It's built in the middle of a lagoon that the buildings were actually built on wooden platforms, which you don't really see anywhere else. Venice was a maritime and trade powerhouse, which allowed the city to maintain its structures and technology and to further enhance them. And the city is home to one of the most known Catholic churches, and it is very big into religion. And finally, here's the bibliography, just with all the sources that I use on this project. And in conclusion, just thank you for watching. Hope you were able to learn something about Venice today, um, and look forward to answering any questions that you have during the panel. Thank you very much.